Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. In today's video, I want to share an insight about the paradox of the self-realization process, in which we sometimes hear that we need to do a spiritual work to get there, and in other instances we hear that there's nothing to do and we just need to be in the now. I very carefully chose the title of this video as waiting for now to arrive, to highlight the apparent paradox of the process. And I want to offer a way to reconcile that apparent paradox so that we are not unnecessarily trapped by it or confused by it, and that we can settle these two seemingly contradictory prongs of the situation, in which we apparently need to make an effort only to arrive to the conclusion that there's no effort to be made. I want to also make a quick caveat about these profound insights, and how, ironically, the deeper the insight, the more concise and simplistic it starts to sound. It seems to be ever edging towards E equals MC square, utterly simple and elegant, and therefore carries the hallmark of truth or correctness. So a lot of the insights that we hear, such as all is emptiness, or nirvana equals samsara, or all is in the now, are the outcome of often very, very intense and extensive processes, and therefore the distillation of a very large number of factors coming together, and then the insight, such as be in the now, becomes an incredibly dense kernel of understanding that is lived by the person who utters it. The danger with such insights is that, depending on our level of consciousness, we might either dismiss them as complete platitudes that don't solve any problems for us, or, which is I think even worse, trick or kid ourselves into believing that we understand them because we psychologically or intellectually get what they mean. This would be the case of someone who says we are one with everything, and then follows with something along the lines of quantum physics already demonstrated that, or things of the kind, is a dead indication of the fact that the person took an intellectual interest in that phrase, dug around, and rather than feeling one with everything or knowing oneself to be one with everything, has stopped at the analytical level of that statement. Neither of those are a problem, but they can be a trap. The first one doesn't allow you to even begin the process. The second one tricks you into believing that you have. And if we do the process of self-cultivation and inquiry, embodiment, and the resolution of our psychosomatic issues and our shadow, by and by these phrases start to be uttered by us as if they were ours to begin with. I was chatting with someone last week who said that they had read a brilliant book, and the feeling throughout the book was I could have written this myself. In other words, the reading of the book, given the process that this person had gone through, was more of an act of recognition. And that spoke to the level of understanding and integration that this person had had on that particular topic or spiritual angle. And that's, of course, where we want to get, if there is a getting there. Now, why is it that we do a lot of work only to understand that we don't need to do any work at all? And in this video, we'll take the angle of time and explain how when our emotional system or our emotional memory is not clean, the mind generates myriad thoughts to explain situations, project issues onto the world, and tell itself pacifying stories or fantasies to regulate our body-mind. The price to pay for that regulation and that repressive distraction is that our awareness becomes hijacked by a mental story that never stops. Because it never stops, it creates the illusory sense of a timeline, and it traps us in time. So that even though that story is only ever being perceived in the now, the impression that we have, and it is a very, very convincing impression, is that we are in a timeline that has a past and a future. I will make another small parenthesis at this point and have a go at the phrase, everything is happening at the same time. I think that is an incredibly confusing phrase. I think it is, perhaps it was meant to be provocative, but it's definitely not explicative. Because if poorly understood, what you hear is everything is happening simultaneously, which at least from an experiential level is not, okay? It's a different thing to say everything happens in the now, but it unfolds in the now, but there is an unfolding to speak of as opposed to everything being perceived at once, or everything everywhere all at once, as the movie would call it. That is not our experience of things, and it's a confusing way to phrase it. Now, going back to the original topic of being trapped in time, it is the illusion of time that then creates something to look forward to. And so long as we are under the illusion of time, we don't really have much of a choice other than to look forward to something else. Even if that something else is our ability to not look forward to things. You see? And that's where things get completely convoluted in our head. And so, knowing the cause of the illusion of time and the effect that it has on our psyche, the inability to simply settle into the now, we keep jumping out of the now. And we keep jumping, ironically, out of the now towards, in case we're doing spirituality, we keep jumping out of the now in the hope of a future in which we no longer do that, you see? But it cannot be dealt with at the level of effect. You cannot stop jumping out of the now directly. You can only undermine the causes or the reasons why we are jumping out of the now. The illusion of time is the reason we jump out of the now, at least mentally. We're not really jumping out of the now, but we are caught in the illusion of that we are. And as I said, our uncleaned or unprocessed psychosomatics and our own processed pain is the thing that makes us create a lot of mentation, a lot of thought, create the illusion of time, and feel ill at ease in the now. In other words, for a mind that it has not healed itself, the now is an uninhabitable, horrific Mad Max level wasteland of pain, confusion, eeriness, loneliness, and God knows how many other things. I mean, who wants to reside in that now? I don't. Yeah. And so To quote a martial arts teacher that I was listening to the other day, you have to make yourself, aka your now, a likable and inhabitable place before you actually want to be there, because otherwise you will create time in a desire to, or subconscious desire to escape that now. Therefore, there is work to be done in order to settle into the now, even though you are always in it. So, and this is literally coming to mind as I explain this, perhaps the choice is not whether we are in the now or not. The choice is whether we can, attention-wise, settle into the now, rather than using our attention as a avoidance and repression mechanism to, with all futility, try to escape the now. Because of course it doesn't work, but that definitely doesn't prevent us from trying, because the now is indeed very painful, as I mentioned. So there is work to be done to be able to settle into the now that we never leave. And that settling is a skill, is a cultivatable skill. It is also an outcome of dealing with the factors that make our attention want to depart. And as we start to use our attention in a different way, if we use our attention to go towards discomfort, as I was explaining in my last video, as opposed to away from it, then we start to become acquainted with the pain contained in the now, and over time resolve the pain contained in the now, and then there is no reason to depart away from the now. So as a consequence, we finally, between quotes, arrive at the now that we never left, or rather, as I said, which is a little bit more of a resolving the apparent discrepancy or the apparent paradox, able to peacefully settle into the now in an amicable way, in which case both the paradox is resolved, but we all are also at peace as part of the result of a process that unfolded always in the now and has now led to a wholesome relationship with that now. So I wanted to simply have a go at this topic because it has created so much confusion in the spiritual world due to people who sometimes refuse to acknowledge the experiential reality of how our human brain functions, and also the neurological reality that we are dealing with a wiring in our body-mind that needs to be worked with. Whether it's made of consciousness or matter or sensory pixies, which are magical and give us experience, it's completely beside the point. The fact of the matter is the nervous system must be dealt with and cannot possibly be ignored as part of this work, or otherwise we're just making things awkward, confusing, paradoxical, mystical, and utterly unworkable, which is a complete shame for some of the people who have been devout truth seekers for several decades in this path. It's not necessary to be confused about this path. But if we take starting points that preclude the influence of matter and the state of our nervous system in the realities that it can render and the insights or understandings that it can render, then I think we're going to have a very tough time. I don't think it's necessary at this point. I think we know enough not to make confusing things out of these topics. So I'm sharing this because it seemed pertinent watching some non-dual teacher, I'm not going to name names, trying by hook or by crook, by pretend that everything is just mind, which might indeed be the case, but it's not a workable model to resolve confusion in someone who's not there on that level, right? There needs to be a bridge, and there needs to be a bridgeable path to resolve our neurology and allow the insight that we've always been in the now and that we can be at peace with it to arise. So thanks for listening thus far, if you did. And I am, as always, very, very curious to what you guys make of the topic. The year is winding down. I've only recently made something like 2,600 subscribers. I'm very happy with that. Super stoked. So thanks for giving your vote of confidence to the channel thus far. If you think the content is worth liking, sharing, and subscribing, then do so. And I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. Cheerio and bye-bye.